You don't know what you're listening to. You're dropping that EMF, you're dropping that EVP instrument on Mars. That's what you're doing. So you can't say, I heard a woman screaming. No, you didn't. You heard a sound you don't have any baseline for. It's very important to note what I'm saying here. You need to know what things sound like before you can say, I heard something abnormal. It's very, very important. Okay? That's just a real important thing. This is Ramiro, the guy that was diving the 50-50-02, testing out some stuff. We were just testing some light configs on one of our little deep rovers. These are sometimes drive around in these. They're a lot of fun. Search and recovery. We do search and recovery. I got a call for a great search and recovery job 2 nights ago, but I was on my way here. We couldn't do it. Car drove in by a restaurant. Who knows who's inside? We pull them out of the water. It's really neat. If I had my jar with the EMF detector in it, I'd be first in on a great ghost hunt. Okay? Have I taken paranormal photos at car wreck sites? Yeah, I have. Okay, because I have. And it was damn interesting. Here's a car. Now, unfortunately, these guys didn't make it. And the reason that we came here, well, this is when it was being pulled out. There were 3 guys coming home late at night. This is close to where I live. We have a lot of water. It's like Venice, Italy. There's canals by everybody's house. And if you drive too far and you drive off the road, you fly into a canal. It's just how it is. So this guy was driving home late, and I don't know how fast he was going, but he launched and went airborne, went into the canal, and that was the end of that. Well, a short time after that, they started seeing somebody walking along, looked like a fisherman along the banks. And there's people fishing all the time. So one of the neighbors came out and said, hey, bro, what are you catching? What's going on? And there's nobody there. That kind of thing. So then you start putting it together and you start looking and you think, is that? We get calls about this ghost guy, and then all of a sudden it correlates with where the car got popped out. Then you have to wonder what's going on. So we see the whole canal with sono buoys looking for light anomalies is really, really fascinating. What you'll find. Really neat. Another one, late at night, same type of scenario. Some of these crashes are pretty bad. I took this one in the water, running a cable out to go pull this car out. Sometimes they're, any form of tragedy. People don't necessarily have to die. It could be, they can get arrested. They can, God knows what happens. They go missing. They swim off to, get away from the police and they drown. These things happen. So people don't necessarily die in the cars. There's a spot that we went to where someone was actually running from the police while driving, got out of their car, jumped into a canal and drowned. There you go. It's supposed to be haunted too. People see things there. It's really, really, really strange. So this is one of the many hats that we wear, things that we do. Same type of scenario. A lot of alligators, always at night. That's me, 30 seconds before stepping on an alligator, and it's an eye-opener, that's for sure. You see the look on my face? It's 4 o'clock in the morning and it's freezing cold and somebody just woke me up look. That's what that is. More training, that's actually my backyard. More training. We do night training, blackwater ops. You need to know your way in blackwater. Most of what we do is in the dark. You have to sit in the dark with no lights on to see light anomalies in the dark. You can't take a flashlight and shine it on a ghost, just like you can't hear and say, ooh, I see a ghost, let me light him up. It's not going to work. You sit in the dark, you wait for light appears, that's different. Okay, that's what you have to do. So we do a lot of blackwater ops. We train in the dark in black water. We're super comfortable in black water. I'd rather dive black water than anything. Certainly more than murky water. Black water is nice. Sonar. Here we are in a lake. It's got a hydrophone here. And actually this particular hydrophone is hooked up to an underwater metal detector. We were looking for the remains, the purported remains of mafia or rather, where the mafia had cement shooed some people into a lake. And they're seeing people walk along the shores of this lake, and they're all saying, oh, the mafia, you know, Al Capone, because you know Al Capone was everywhere, right? If it's haunted, Al Capone was there, right? So it was like that. So, you know, there was like, 365 days in a year, and Al Capone was cited 3,650 times that year, once a day. It just makes no sense at all. Okay, but anyhow, Al Capone was supposed to be here, which he was not, and people were supposed to be been cement chewed, and these bodies were all supposed to be down there. So we put 17 forensic trained divers in the bottom of this lake, and we scoured every square inch of it down to 5 feet deep in the muck. It's pretty detailed. It took 2 days. And what we found is that there was no evidence that Al Capone had cement chewed anybody. But there was evidence of something else. The story, there was an alternate story that there was a big home on the lake at one time many years ago, and there was a fire, and 2 women perished. Well, the county registrar said, the county clerk said that there was never a home there, nothing had ever happened there. They even had aerial photos that showed nothing here and there. Well, we found the burned house on the bottom of the lake. So that was cool. We got the smoking gun right there. So was that from the gal, you know, was the gal walking the shore of the lake? That ghost? We don't know. But she wasn't cement chewed, and it's likely that she may have had something to do with it. This is right about the time that Phil found the hinges to the front door. It was a really cool find. Really, really cool find. Perfect example of why you should buy an American truck. Okay? Tacomas don't do well at the dock. They're too light. I swear to God, they're too light. You pull too many of them out of the water. Here's another one. Okay. Paleontology. 5-foot-long Carcharodon megalodon tooth. We find those. We find them all the time. The scary part is, some of them aren't 50 million years old. Some of them look like they just dropped out of the damn thing's mouth. Now, Carcharodon conocaris, the great white shark, has a tooth about 1.5 inches long. Maybe 2 inches long. This is 5, almost 6 inches long. You know how big this shark was? 100 feet? And when you find some that look fresh, that's creepy. We do a lot of paleontology now. Here we were in Shark Alley in the Bahamas a couple of years ago, and Earl was laughing at me because he thought I had a look on my face. So you see, this doesn't really show you the shot. There's there's a wall of coral here, and I'm like plastered into it like this, and there's these little nooks and crannies, and I'm in the nooks like this, like don't see me. I'm an urchin, and these things are going by. Now where's Brian? Are you out there? Brian was there. His dad's laughing his butt off, and then there's 14 of these around us, and it was time to come up, and it was quite the adventure, pretty neat, a lot of fun. Now, surf and turf. We go to a lot of places nobody's ever dove. It makes it a lot of fun. We kick through the mangroves. This is actually near where Ponce de Leon was looking for the Fountain of Youth. It's actually across the street from my house. And there's an area where the first Spanish settlement fort in the Gulf of Mexico ever was. And there was a Calusa Indian raid, and they killed everybody, and there's a lot of paranormal activity there. And there are these large sinkholes that are surrounded by mangrove, which chokes very thick. You can see how thick this mangrove is. Like, you can just see the thickness right here. And it's full of banana spiders that are probably 4 inches across, moccasins, banana spiders, gators. And we went in, this is my buddy Kyle, and we basically went in there, a whole bunch of us, probably 8 or 9 of us. We went into this sinkhole, and we went down to the bottom. You know, there hadn't been anyone in this sinkhole in over 100 years, probably hundreds of years. And we went down to the bottom of this thing to see what was down there, see what we could find. Any kind of Indian artifacts, anything pertaining to the Spaniards, anything at all, was really, really fascinating. A friend of mine went in one and found an intact mastodon skeleton. Very, very cool. So right near where I live, so you never know what to find. But we do a lot of surf and turf. sometimes you bring up a body before you bring up the paranormal, and it's all linked together. Okay, you've got to create the history. Somebody's got to find that history first, and we do that. That's part of the fascination. Chris, in the lagoon. In the lagoon, there was something swimming in the lagoon. We still don't know what the hell it was. We've got aerial photos from the 1940s of this, taken on some bombing runs, that showed an impenetrable mass of, see that mangrove on the outside? There was an impenetrable mass in the 1940s. And that was when the first aerial photos were ever taken. So we can imagine that there probably wasn't a human in here since maybe, the days of maybe the late 1600s, 1700s. Pretty amazing. But there was something swimming around that had no way to get out to the surface, or to get out of that little tiny 300 square foot sinkhole, and it swam near us but didn't swim any closer that we could photograph it. So we don't know what this was. This was a crypto trip. It's pretty neat. Spec Ops, just what it is. We perform special operations. We go down and we test gear that's specialized and secret. And we're by ourselves, and we like it that way. And you need to learn, you need to learn a lot about your gear, and the only way to do it is by special operations and application. Real important. Here we are coming up off of this is Matt, one of our divers, and he's coming out of where that car went in, and you can see how black the water is. This is where the people were seeing the guy walking on the shoreline. You can imagine the guy just disappears. There's just bushes there right at the end, and he disappeared. So we went in there to go find out what it was. People see green lights down there in the water all the time. It's not swamp gas. We're not sure what it is. We go in caves. We go in caverns. Sometimes divers go deep, and divers don't know what they're doing, and divers die. Even divers who do know what they're doing die, and we have to replicate what killed them and still come back alive. It's very, very, very important. Don't die, okay? Every 5 feet, we've got to think about that. Billy and I went into a cave, a couple of months ago. We ran that cord reel into the cave going off of the Paradise Cavern, and you've got to think the whole time, with every foot, you've got to think, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die, and you do, and you have to make it to here, and it's like, I made it this far, don't die, I made it this far, don't die. The reason I say this is because the deeper you go, especially on air, you can get nitrogen narcosis. Nitrogen narcosis is what's called rapture of the deep. Are any of you familiar with that? Rapture of the deep is when it's like breathing nitrous oxide. The deeper you get, the more saturation of nitrogen there is, the more nitrogen acts like nitrous oxide at the dentist laughing gas, and you start feeling a little funky. They also call it Martini's rule. With every atmosphere of 33 feet you go down, it's like you drink one martini. Okay, now, what happens is this. You've got different phases of nitrogen narcosis. Some people might experience lightheadedness. Some people might experience drunkenness. Some people might completely lose touch with reality. And then people like myself who have lost touch with reality, we don't feel anything at all. Okay? So you have these different phases of things that happen to people, and you've got to get yourself down there, get used to being narked, work narked, learn how to work. We take boxes down, kids block boxes with circles, squares, triangles, and then one person holds the box at full depth, and then in the pitch black caves, and we've done it in the central Florida caves, and then someone hands you these shapes, and you have to put the shapes in the holes. And you've got people putting squares and circles and circles and squares and all that. You do. So, of course, we breathe nitrox, which changes that because we've got more oxygen and less nitrogen. But then the nitrogen becomes toxic, and then you have to worry about dying from that. So you've got to be really, really careful. More Blackwater Ops, another film crew. This is exactly what it's like. This is where we dive. That's actually me on the right, Jen on the